And we're recording. Hi, welcome back to See What Art, Nothing and Everything. God damn it, I changed the name of the podcast. I'm not editing this out either. Let me change my levels. Yeah, this is all staying in the podcast because professionalism. Hi, I'm Russell. Welcome back.
Hi, I'm Jake.
Jake is a new person on the show.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing this for like a year.
Yeah, we have. We've been talking about doing this forever. But we finally have a legitimate reason. And actually a topic for the show. It's Star Wars. We're talking everything Star Wars. Mostly the new Star Wars movie that just came out, which is Rise of Skywalker.
We can talk about a bit about the Mandalorian too.
Oh yeah, we can. Jacob, how do we know each other?
We met. Let's see. I was a sophomore and you were a junior
At
Purdue.
Yeah.
So we both worked at the co-rec. That was a lot of fun.
Oh my god.
It really wasn't, but
oh god, that job was miserable. Jacob, what was your favorite thing about working at the co-rec? Was it the fact that we couldn't talk to each other, or was it the fact that we had to look like robots?
Yeah, I would say the straight face, couldn't smile, couldn't enjoy the job.
Grant was definitely a highlight.
You did not have to deal with Sarah as much as I did. Sarah hated my guts.
I think, yeah, Sarah also didn't like me, but I don't think she knew my name. She was just like, this asshole.
Yeah. For reference, Sarah was the manager on Russell and I worked two different positions.
Yeah.
Russell was a
fitnessy, trainery kind of. I was like a muscle lifeguard.
Okay, and then I was in charge of making sure people didn't break rules throughout the entire facility.
Yeah, you were like a muscle babysitter, and I was a muscle lifeguard.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So we had different managers. Yours was Grant, mine was Sarah, and I don't think either of them liked us at all.
And, which is fair. I can't blame them for not liking me, because if I had to work with me, I would also not like me. But, yeah, the co-rec at Purdue is a nice facility. It kind of smells like a testicle. And the management is just horse shit.
Yeah.
Not at Purdue, I mean, it might be, I don't know. Mitch Daniels is cool, I guess. I have no idea.
He's not really that cool. He's kind of a racist. But...
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Damn. I guess he's kind of a racist. Didn't know that. Hey, man, stop being racist. If you listen to this, don't be racist, dude. Like, come on. It's like 2020.
Is that slander? Is he going to come after us now?
Is it slander? Dude, what is he going to take from me? My computer?
It's a nice computer.
It is a nice computer. He's going to take all my assets. You know what? I talk more smack about, like, big-time film companies on here than an ex-politician. Actually, I think I'd be more scared of the ex-politician.
That's fair.
You know what?
Yeah.
I had the fan on my computer plugged in. Silence. I'm sorry if you guys could hear that for the first 3 minutes of this podcast. I was like, what is that whirring sound? It's the fan. Hear that? Dead air. Sounds great. But yeah, so Jake, what do you do at Purdue? What's your thing?
I study all the time. I have no fun. I'm an engineering major. So
yeah, what kind of stuff do you engineer, Jacob?
I work I study aerospace, so I work on a lot of aircraft and spacecraft stuff. So I've worked a few internships, and I'm probably not supposed to talk about some of the stuff that I've done, but I can probably. I worked on the F-35 program as well as the Orion space capsule, which is pretty exciting I'm only 22.
Yeah, it's really impressive. Yeah, Jacob has worked on, for those of you who don't know what it is, one of them is a spaceship and the other is an airplane. For those of you listening who don't know what either or one of those two things are. Or space capsule and then an airplane. Were you working on the plane during the crash thing? During that whole fiasco?
I cannot talk about that, I don't believe.
Oh.
So, there's your answer.
Okay.
You guys can probably infer.
It's one of those, nope, not at all. But yeah, so that's pretty cool. And you did that during college, which is really impressive.
Yeah, I got pretty lucky, I consider.
You basically scored the world's coolest internship. There's tape on the ground.
So, yeah, it's kind of strange compared to some of my other peers. They're kind of struggling to find positions, and I'm getting a few emails from various people.
Yeah, no, and that's the ticket. That's what you want. You want contacts, right? I mean, I don't know why I'm saying that. Everyone does. I'm also still in school, but different school now. I don't think I've ever said on here where I go to school. I think that was a rule I made when I was at Purdue doing this. I never said I went to Purdue. And then now where I nebulously go to school, I probably have said it on here. But I don't ever talk about what the school is. But I say what my degree is. But people know I went to Purdue now.
Okay. You don't talk about your master's?
I talk about a master's of science and cinematography and like what I do, but I don't say the school. And I mean, if someone really wants to track me down, it's a master's of science in cinematography. There's like 6 schools in the United States that do it. And this is one of the best ones.
So UCLA, right?
Yeah, I go to UCLA. That's why I record this show in Chicago every week. I actually fly home to Chicago to hang out with my parents to record this in the podcast studio, which actually is getting moved downtown to Lincoln Park because my new job is getting an office in Lincoln Park.
Really?
Yeah. The new job I was talking about, which I can't really talk much about here, but we're getting a full office. So that big microphone, the scooter, the chair, all the stuff that's in here that kind of seems out of place, like the shoulder camera rig, is all moving down there, which is kind of why it's just sort of piecemealed into this room. Because it's not really meant to, like, all my camera bags, all this stuff.
It's fine. It's fine. It's got character.
Someone asked me in a email to the show, what does the room that I record in look like? It is legitimately a storage room. It's like a storage office.
It's like an old office.
It's like an old office that's been retrofitted with cookbooks, and basically anything my parents don't want to put up with goes in this room, including myself. Things they don't want to put up with go into here. So that's why I've been put in the podcast room. Actually, the real reason I chose this room is because it's the only room in my entire house without a fan. So it's actually silent in here. And the only ventilation is that little thing on the corner. But I actually went up in the attic and turned off the grate to it so you can't hear the fan. So whenever I'm editing or recording, it's actually perfectly silent in here. That's why I picked this room.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have any like sound insulation in here anyway, so that helps out a lot.
I have a bunch of sound paneling in one of those boxes. One of those boxes is full of acoustic paneling.
Well, it's in the box, so...
It's working really well in that box. If you put your head in that box, silence. It's like, it's ridiculous. But no, also, I have this big comfy couch in here, which deadens a lot of the sound. But we aren't talking about acoustic paneling on this episode, even though I'm sure everyone's fascinated with it. We're talking about Star Wars.
And, so if you haven't seen the new...
Oh, yeah, this is all spoilers.
So
100% spoilers.
Yeah, turn away if you haven't seen it yet.
Let's do Star Wars, the Rise of Skywalker first, and then we'll do the Mandalorian second.
All right.
So Jacob, before we talk about the plot and what the story of the movie was about, off the bat, what did you think?
Man, my brother unfortunately texted me and told me he loved it. So like, I kind of was unsure. I'll be honest. Like, I wasn't in love with Episode 8, but it was. I still enjoyed it overall, and I'm not the kind of Star Wars fan where I'm just like, oh man, it has to be
one way or the other.
Yeah, I usually just enjoy new content, and Episode 9 just kind of blew me away with how it tied everything in together. It was just.
It was good.
It captured a good nostalgia feel. It brought in past cast. It kind of tied in so much together and in a new way too. And it was refreshing.
No, it definitely was. I completely agree. I really going into this, I had read a lot of just short kind of snippet reviews of the film wasn't edited properly or this wasn't good or that wasn't good, blank, blank, blank. And leaving the film with Jacob, because we saw it together, as someone who's done editing quasi-professionally and has worked in the film industry quasi-professionally and has a degree in it, structurally speaking, the film was fine. Like, it was edited together quite well. It flowed very well. There's a lot of jumping from planet to planet to planet, but, I mean, it's like any Star Wars movie. A lot is happening all at the same time. There's like 6 different mini-stories kind of that have to converge at one point, basically. And here's the thing. 1, it's a fantasy. It's not real. 2, it's a movie. 3, it's not real. 4, it's a movie. 5, you didn't make the movie. And 6, make something better.
Yeah.
And you try to tie in 40 plus years of lore, millions and millions and millions of fans, side stories and everything into one film. You do better.
Yeah. Well, from our experience, I would say it's almost a 3-hour long movie, and I would say it didn't feel like 3 hours long.
No, it was quite brisk. It was like going.
And we were talking about this in the car ride back home. That we're just like kind of wanting more. Like even when the movie finished, it didn't feel like 3 hours. And you just wanted to see more after.
Yeah, so I've talked about this before. My favorite films of all time are Lord of the Rings. But at the end of Lord of the Rings, you're like, oh god, I gotta stand up. I gotta do something. Like you feel the runtime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're long films, and that's not a bad thing. I genuinely love those movies to death. But this movie was, in essence, 3 hours. I mean, we were sitting down for more than 3 hours with the trailers combined. And when we left, I was like, damn, that was like, it felt like an hour and a half. It felt like 90 minutes. Like, it was quick. And every scene was necessary. There was no filler moments. Like, every shot did something special for the film.
I suppose we could probably talk a little bit more in depth. They in the movie they did a lot of kind of callbacks to episode 7 and 8 specifically.
Yeah,
where there's like the flashbacks from Rey's vision when she first picked up
the
lightsaber.
Yeah,
and there was callbacks to like Kylo saying "you're nobody."
Yeah,
in episode 8, and like a lot of the times like. Those flashbacks weren't really fleshed out in episode 8 at all.
Yeah.
And, when Kylo said, "you're nobody," that's a really controversial, like, quote. I remember, like, a lot of people are like, well, like, what does that mean? Like, we all wanted her to be
somebody.
Obi-Wan's daughter or something like that. And, it was just kind of nice, like, knowing that those weren't just random scenes.
Yeah, they built into something. And I guess this is a good point for us to say what the story was, like what the movie is scene by scene, or like a rough narrative, and then we'll go through and talk about spoilers.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, full spoilers ahead. So the movie picks up several years after episode 8, probably.
Believe so.
Because the Resistance has grown a lot.
Rey's doing a lot more training. You can tell that she's a lot stronger with the Force.
So it's probably at least 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, so it picks up. The first scene we see is Kylo Ren just in this like forest, just absolutely killing people. Like
everyone. He's alone too.
Yeah, and he's just massacring the aliens to find this thing called a Wayfinder, which leads him to.
I forget the name of the planet, but it's a Sith planet.
Yeah,
essentially, it's a hidden Sith planet
with this big floating like pyramid temple thing.
It's a Sith temple.
Yeah, it's like a big Sith temple. It leads him there, where he sees that there's like clones of Snoke. They're like in jars.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing. Was like you hear Palpatine's voice, and he says, "I made Snoke," and then you see the jars, and you're like, "Well, he actually made him."
Yeah, and then you see Palpatine, the Emperor. And he's, like, hooked up to, like, a big arm, and he's, like, zombified.
Yeah, he's got, like, white eyes and everything.
He's, like, pickled.
It's kind of, like, he's, like, essentially dead, but he's alive somehow.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Harry Potter?
Yeah.
You've seen Harry Potter? Come on. Okay. You know the old lady who the snake is living inside of the old lady?
Yes.
That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, it's creepy.
It's really, very off-putting and creepy. And he has like black lips.
We were sitting next to like an 8-year-old, and I was like kind of like looked over at him, and I'm like, man, must be like traumatizing for you.
Yeah, because I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, this is like freaking me out.
This is rated PG-13, and I feel like I'm gonna have nightmares.
Oh yeah, no, that with Palpatine, where he like is talking to Kylo Ren at the beginning, where he's like, "I've done this, do it," kind of Palpatine isms, and then Kylo Ren's like, "Oh shit, you're behind all this," and Palpatine's like, "Yeah, I want you to go kill Rey."
Yeah,
and then he's like, he tells Kylo Ren who Rey really is, but we don't get to hear it.
Yeah,
and that's the first inkling I got is like, "Oh shit, we're gonna find out, we're gonna find out, we're gonna find out," and based on that first scene, I was like, brother and sister. he's going to tell them that they're actually brother and sister or something.
See, I wasn't thinking that because, like, I was... I feel like Leia would have told...
Yeah, Leia would have said something.
Something by then. So I was, like, thinking, I'm like, she's got to be the descendant of some Jedi.
Yeah.
You know?
Or maybe she's a clone.
I wasn't thinking Obi-Wan, but, like, at that point, you're like...
Who is there on the list?
You know... God, Yoda?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's going to lead into the Mandalorian. But yeah, who is there, like, left that you could be like, oh, obviously
and you seriously, you couldn't narrow it down to any options, but you're like, well, she's important and we have to know this character.
Yeah, and, like, there's obviously been a lot of emphasis put on who her parents are because she's abandoned, and that's a big part of it. So her parents have to be somebody kind of thing. And so then the film, after that sequence, picks up with Rey.
She starts... well, they send out the transmission from the Emperor.
Oh, yeah, they send out the transmission.
And then they're like, well, we need to go find a way to get to this Sith planet. And
yeah.
Rey's like, hey, Luke was on that mission.
Yeah.
And then they kind of start following Luke's old footsteps, and they ended up on some planet.
This desert planet that's having, like, basically a, like, Bonnaroo Burning Man kind of festival thing. Where everyone's like, there's like a big concert.
It was cool. It was really colorful. It was just like
it was like an alien culture.
Yeah, what happens once every 42 years.
Yeah.
Apparently. Yep.
And Lando's there.
Yeah, yeah, and God, what? You know, they're just like walking around, and before Lando shows up, though, they do like the Force connection
with Kylo
and
Rey.
And that's the first time where we see an interaction where they can actually physically interact.
And, like, they touch each other through it.
But the thing is Kylo's able to rip the necklace that is given to her, and then you realize that, like, physical objects can be transferred through this connection.
Yeah, which is super cool. And when he grabs the beads off of her, he gives them to, like, his intel people on his Star Destroyer, and they're like, she's here. It has to be from this planet.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yo, we have to get out of here now.
Yeah.
Like, Kylo knows where we are. And then
when
Lando shows up, and he's like, hey, I've been on this planet. I've been looking for this Wayfinder because Luke was here, but the trail went cold, so I stayed here. And kind of waiting for someone else to sort of pick up this trail. And so they bump into Lando, and Lando's like, okay, I'll help you guys. Here's where you need to go. And sets them on their way. And then they kind of get chased down by these stormtroopers.
We probably shouldn't say bump into, because that sounds like really, like, convenient. Leia contacts Lando to tell Lando
as, like,
to
their
find them.
as their, like, contact point.
Yeah. And then, let's see, they go through the chase scene. This shows up in the trailer where there's
with
like
the flying stormtroopers.
With the flying stormtroopers, and
it's a really cool chase scene.
Yeah, it is really fun.
It reminded me of the pod racer scene, just because they're going through the canyons and stuff.
Yeah, I would say. Also, kind of like a mix between that and Episode 6 on the speeder bikes.
Yeah, on Endor, yeah, definitely, because they're going side by side. Yep. And I think this is the first time in Star Wars we've ever seen something with tires.
Yeah, well, no, because, I mean, like, if you look at the Clone Wars...
they both have the
tires.
But they were riding, like, basically, like, there's, like, tank treads on a motorcycle.
It's kind of like a snowmobile, but with, like, for this, you know, going through a desert.
Yeah, they're really cool design. They flip up.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a really cool design. Star Wars always has cool designs for their ships.
I know, yeah. I remember, like, when the trailer came out, some people were criticizing that, but, you know, tires and tracks have been in the game.
Yeah,
before, right?
And they've been in the games, the movies, the comics.
Everything. So, like,
and I
was fine with it.
Yeah, and it looked really cool. And so basically, they get them off their trail by, like, creatively killing them, a little bit Mad Max style with ropes and stuff, and flipping over the pursuing speeders.
There's, like, the paint canister that exploded. That's in the trailer, too.
Yeah.
So you see that. Let's see. And then they get stuck in this quicksand, like, right after it, essentially, because both their speeders that they stole blow up.
And they find the ship that they're looking for that potentially has the answer, but they don't know, and neither does Lando. Lando's like, this might be what we need. So they kind of stumble across it, and they fall into this pit through the sand, and there's this big snake thing that...
Well, I mean, first they find the dagger.
Oh, yeah, there's this...
So they find a dagger, and then C-3PO can translate it, because it's in Sith writing, but he can't tell anyone what it is because it's like
against his code. It's like a failsafe to make sure he doesn't turn evil. Is what it is.
Yeah, and then there's the giant snake in there essentially, and that's the first time we actually see it in like the movies is like a force heal ability.
Yeah, which we've seen I think in the games before, the comics, and like the Clone Wars TV show and like the Rebels kind of TV show. We've seen that sort of thing talked about and used, but in the movies it's the first time we ever see someone force healing.
Yeah, so Rey like heals the snake, and the snake like lets him out of this cavern. It was that sounds kind of weird saying it out loud, but it was a pretty well shot scene.
It was really cool. It was a practical effect. Like that snake was a real thing that's clearly in the room with them.
Yeah,
and it was like basically blocking their exit, and it just slithers out of the way when she heals it.
And then like as much as like some people might say it really does allude to the fact that like that force heal ability is used later on in the movie.
Yeah, it's like she can use it. So
it's not like force. It's there as a setup to the rest of the movie.
It is a setup, but it also works organically in the scene.
Very
it's
much
not
so.
Just like, oh, look what she can do. It's more of a, oh, cool, this is something that she knows, and it's a logical evolution of what the force powers are.
Yeah.
Because you can see her doing the floating stuff first. You see her throw a lightsaber.
That is the fun thing about this movie is we're seeing more and more force powers compared to the other movies, and not just like force push and force pull. It's just like there's a diverse power.
There's one cool force power that we're going to talk about later with a fight scene with Kylo Ren and Rey on top of a ship that they use, and I want to talk about it because no one's ever done that before, and I'm like, that's so clever. But
all right, let's keep rolling.
Then basically, we see the scene from the trailer where Poe, Finn, and Chewie are in this ship trying to take off, figure out like, okay, we have this dagger, we have this stuff. Now
they're trying to escape the First Order at this point.
Yeah, and Rey's like, Kylo Ren is here. I'm gonna go out and figure this shit out. She goes in the middle of the desert, and we see the scene from the trailer where she does the backflip over the TIE fighter.
Yeah, but it continues, and she like destroys the TIE fighter with like one lightsaber strike.
Yeah, she like cuts its wing off.
And then in the
Chewie
meantime,
gets captured.
Chewbacca gets captured, and then Kylo and Rey have like a force battle. There's no lightsabers involved, but Rey tries to stop the ship that has Chewie.
Yeah.
From taking off, and then Kylo is like trying to let it go. Like,
yeah, they're like, it's like a stalemate. They're both using the Force for different reasons, and then Rey uses Force lightning. She gets frustrated and accidentally blows the ship up.
Yeah, and it's like, should we spoil?
Yeah.
All right. So we in this moment you think Chewbacca dies, and everyone's like just like kind of going insane because like Rey is losing it, Finn and Poe are also losing it, and then Kylo is also in like kind of shock that she used it because that's like a dark side
power.
And at the same time, I mean, I know we were watching this and we're like, wow, that's insane, like that's so cool, like did she just lose it out of anger? And we had no idea that it was alluding to this giant plot reveal.
Yeah, that comes like 30 minutes later in the movie. We're both like, I like was like, oh shit, she used Force lightning, and I was thinking, wait, can all Jedis do that if they just get pissed off enough?
We play games and stuff like Count Dooku uses Force lightning. There's a lot of video games allow you to use Force lightning. So
yeah,
from my perspective, I'm like, yeah, like it's just like a dark power, like
Yeah, but you can tap into it.
Yeah,
and so basically, Rey gets upset. They leave, but they figure out that Chewbacca is alive because Rey's using the Force to see what's going on Kylo Ren's ship, and she's like, Chewie's up there, like I can feel him. And while this is happening, they go to this other ship where they run into these spice runners that Poe used to know that can help her reprogram C-3PO to read the dagger out. Like,
this is on a new planet, by the way, too. So after that, they fly away. And then they show up to this planet to get C-3PO that has read this dagger to get the memory. Because they lost the dagger in the meantime.
Yeah, it was on Chewie's person.
Yeah. And then, let's see. After that, we get the background of Poe, finally.
Yeah, like who he is and where he's from. So he used to be a drug smuggler.
Yeah.
kind of like Han Solo,
which is kind of cool because it's bringing it like a little bit more like a Han Solo similarity.
Yeah, and he clearly does not like the fact that he used to be one, unlike Han Solo, who's like
very secretive about it, which is like kind of adds to like why it wasn't talked about in the first two. So like it made it flow well.
Yeah, and it's clearly like General Leia didn't know about this, and it's like alluded that he escaped and like changed his identity and joined the Resistance, so no one knew. And there's a really good line where Finn says like, "You were a spice runner," and Poe turns to Finn, he's like, "Yeah, and you were a stormtrooper. What do you want to say?"
And then
like,
Rey is like, "You were a spice runner," and he's like, "And you were a scavenger." Like let's get over this.
Yeah, we all have things that we're like not proud of, which is a really good scene. And they go and they basically reprogram C-3PO, which you see in the trailers where he's like, "The last time I'm going to look at my friends," which is a pretty heartbreaking scene.
Yeah.
Where you're like, damn, they're gonna erase all of C-3PO's
They do
memory.
a little bit of a scene to make you like think that C-3PO is dead, and I was like, oh no, like they like screwed it up, and then they got the message and like learned where
it was
this Wayfinder, like,
and it's on one of the little moons of Endor.
Yeah. And for reference, this Wayfinder, I don't know if you guys, it's like a pyramid. It looks like a Sith holocron. If you guys know lore.
It's essentially just a little map,
but it's not. I don't think it is a Sith holocron. It's just like a Sith artifact.
It's like a Sith artifact that you can plug into your ship and it gives you a piece of the map.
There's only 3 in existence.
Yes. And in the books that we didn't know what was in them from Episode 8, that's what's in them. Luke's writings on where all this stuff is. And Rey is like looking through and she's like, "Oh my god, I know what that is." Yeah. And that's what puts her on the mission, is what's in those books, which we never learned. Which is cool that you get filled in on what the hell are in these just books that are in a tree.
Yeah.
Is all this like ancient Sith stuff, ancient Jedi stuff that is...
It's all of Luke's findings as well. It's, Luke is adding to this as well.
Yeah. And it's cool. It's a little detail that like the art design team put in, but it's all in different handwritings. If you're like, when she's flipping the page, it's in different handwriting. So it's like every generation adds stuff to it. And Rey's been learning about this. So Rey's like, okay, cool. We have to go get this Sith artifact. And it's on a piece of the old Death Star, which fell onto this planet. So it's in this trailers as well. It's just like this giant... It's actually the circle.
The disc.
It's like, the laser disc beam from the old Death Star's on this planet in this giant lake or like in the ocean.
And then they use like the dagger to find out like the exact location of like where the
which I thought was kind of cool, where like the Wayfinder is, where they like pull open the bottom and she's like looking at it through the light. Yeah, it was very Indiana Jones.
Yeah, actually it was. I guess I was a little like kind of like, man, they would have been sitting in like the exact right spot to like figure that out. But
I just was like, damn, that's Indiana Jones all over
like,
that.
And like the bit that did pull out of the dagger, like that, I didn't notice that in the other scenes. So like, if we rewatch it,
it's going to be sitting there.
Yeah, I'd really want to see that.
And basically, then after they get there, Kylo Ren, out of frustration, realizing what's happening, blows up the planet they were just on with the Spice Runners with a Star Destroyer.
Yes, and that was the craziest thing ever. Was have we talked about the fact that there's like the giant fleet being made?
Yeah, so the Emperor has basically a fleet that was like a reserve fleet from back in the day that he had hidden.
Yeah, and every single one of these Star Destroyers, which are just normal-sized Star Destroyers, have the power to destroy planets.
They basically have a Death Star gun on them, which is really cool. And it's implied that they're from back when he was still in power, and he just had them sitting somewhere.
Yeah, and I feel like the whole cloning stuff and all this other stuff that's going on, and it's probably like a good excuse for saying like, this is, you have an army to operate this. Is like, you have
clones,
all this power.
Yeah,
and cloning is part of like the prequels,
yeah, it's all part of it. And in the original trilogy, the Emperor was like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing stuff somewhere else," because he wasn't even in A New Hope. He's in the second one, and he was off doing stuff.
Yeah,
which could
he wasn't even brought up in New Hope. So.
No, and it's very easily you could just explain that. Oh, he was out doing this, and he just showed up to see Darth Vader.
Yeah,
which is just one of his like generals. And so there's a bigger thing happening. And so Rey finds the Wayfinder in the like temple room or like the throne room.
And Kylo shows up.
And destroys it. The fight. The evil Rey.
Yeah, okay, alright, so let's step back a little bit.
Yeah.
Rey takes off on her own to go get this. She's kind of impatient at this point.
Yeah.
It's kind of alluded to, but you don't really figure it out until a little bit later, but she's, like, terrified of her destiny that she thinks she has. So she's really impatient. And she leaves everyone else from the Millennium Falcon, so Finn, Poe, Chewbacca's with them again, I believe. 3PO, and she takes off for this Wayfinder by herself. And Kylo shows up.
Yeah.
As soon as she finds it, and the moment she finds it, she has another vision, and she sees herself becoming
evil.
She sees herself becoming like a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
And which is cool. She's got a dual-bladed staff. Like, I mean,
yeah, it's a pretty sweet weapon.
And then her and Kylo have this giant fight, which we were talking this already, but it's kind of a mix of like the Mustafar fight, from episode 3. Like all the shots were a little bit more distant
because they're on like this like walkway, which was clearly a cannon from the old Death Star, but it's all the water shooting up around them. So you could probably do a supercut of the Mustafar scene and this one of like the lightsabers clashing and like
just edit it with lava instead of water, and it'd be on Mustafar.
And I like the attention to detail in the scene because the water, you can see like the steam coming off the lightsabers because it's like it's vaporizing all the water instantly. And the force power I want to talk about in this is they stop each other's lightsaber with the force. Like they stop it in midair. And they're like holding it.
They both do it to each other too. It's
at like the same time.
And it's such a fun lightsaber scene to watch.
And because you can tell they're equally matched. Like it's two people that are legitimately exactly this. It's like a stalemate.
Yeah. And we were talking about this again. Is a lot of other lightsaber fights in like Star Wars, like you don't really see them getting like tired. Like that fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin, it was like a half-hour fight, and they were fine afterwards. And this one, like, you see both of them just getting tired after, like, just, like, a couple minutes of fighting.
It's like a 2-minute fight scene, but they're panting. Like, and Kylo Ren is, like, he's, like, trying to, like, grab his chest, and Rey, like, tries to turn the lightsaber on and hit him backhanded with it, but, like, misses.
And they're both switching styles to, like, change it up
and, like, combat each other. It's so well done.
And then you see, like, when they are getting tired, they start losing their form. Like, they have the training, right, to fight in a specific way, and then when they get tired, they are trying to hit each other in any way possible.
It's like two boxers that are, like, up against the ropes on each other, and they're just leaning on each other, but they can't get a hit in. And then Leia uses kind of the force projection thing that Luke used, which kills him. And Leia does the same thing to reach out to her son and is like, Ben, don't do this. Like, do the right thing.
Because right now, Kyle's about to kill Rey.
Yeah.
Like, Rey is down on the ground.
Yeah.
And this gives the opportunity for Rey to actually stab Kylo with her lightsaber. Which was, like, kind of a shock. Like, to see... I think we're, like, not even halfway through this movie yet, and Kylo has now been stabbed by Rey.
Through the stomach.
Through the stomach, which is basically, like, a fatal, like...
That's a kill shot.
And at the same time, since this power is very similar to the one that Luke used, Leia passes away.
Yeah, which is a really good way to send off that character. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and then Rey immediately senses that, Leia's gone, and Kylo and Rey share, like, the same, like, loss.
Yeah.
In the moment, and they just, like, stop fighting, and it's, like, almost...
They just, like, look at each other.
Almost as if, like, they're just, like, like, we don't even really want to do this.
Yeah. It definitely is. It's this moment where they look at each other like, there might be something bigger going on. Maybe what we're doing isn't that important. And Rey heals Kylo.
Yeah, and that was kind of the, with the scene before that of her healing the snake, like it was like she like really knows to control this power, and you can tell like Kylo's like, you can see it in his face, like it was such a good scene because you could see the inner turmoil of like him like not knowing how to like understand the fact that his enemy right now just healed him.
Yeah, and there's a moment where he has a lightsaber in his hand and she stands up and he could have killed her.
Oh yeah.
He definitely could have turned around and like just sliced her, but he doesn't. He just sits there and lets her take his TIE fighter or TIE interceptor away to go to Palpatine, which is where she's off to.
Well, no, she doesn't go there first.
She goes to see.
Alright, so...
She goes into exile, basically.
Yeah, she tries to go into exile because she sees herself as a Sith Lord. She doesn't want to do that. So she figures if she removes herself, she...
then there's no Sith.
There's no Sith, and the problem is solved. Kylo sees his dad afterwards.
Which is so cool that Harrison Ford is in this.
Yep. Han Solo comes back. And they have like the same heart-to-heart that they did in Episode 7. And... like, even the same words were being used. Yeah,
but it's like...
But you can tell, like, the facial expressions have changed. Kylo has, like, a softer face.
Yeah, and Harrison Ford or Han Solo in it is just like, yeah, I know you killed me. You clearly messed up, but I still love you.
And it was like the, he was like, I don't know if I have the strength to do this.
Uh-huh.
And instead of, like, Han Solo being like, I know, or, like, he's like, you do. And, like, it's, like, the final, like, step forward.
Yeah.
And Kylo lets go and throws his lightsaber into the ocean.
Yeah, which is... And then you can just see there's, like, this sense of relief. And he, like, turns around, and then Han Solo, of course, is gone. And then we don't see him for a while.
No. And then we transition to Rey, then.
Yeah.
Where she's trying to live her life of exile, and then she's destroying her one mode of transportation off.
Yeah.
And then she throws... the lightsaber into the fire, and it gets caught by Luke.
Yeah, like Ghost Luke's hand.
Ghost
He's
Luke.
like, hey, the weapon of a Jedi should be treated with more respect. Very, like, Yoda-like, being like, hey, stop that.
And they kind of start talking, and you're going to have to help me out on this scene.
And then, so basically in this scene, Luke is kind of like her Yoda, where he's like, hey, I know who you are, and she knows by now... the reveal, you can say it.
That's Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter.
And her parents chose to be no one to hide her from Palpatine, to kind of leave her under the radar. And then her parents got taken away and killed, but she was sort of like left to be hidden forever. So this would never happen.
And I guess it happened anyways. But really, really cool scene. And like even Luke is like, Leia knew about this too, by the way. Like, that you were Palpatine's daughter, which is crazy. Like, and Rey even thinks that. She's like, well, why did she train me if she knew that? And she's like, well, it's not your blood that we care about. It's
like who you really are.
Who you are.
Like, you're better than just your parents. And like Luke is like, well, he doesn't say it, but he's like, my dad was Darth Vader. Like, obviously, we're not just our parents.
It's like and that was like a really good lesson out of the movie itself. It's like, you're not defined by like where you come from. It's what you choose to do with it.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a really good moment for Luke where he's like, hey, you have it in you to do this. Like, you are a Jedi. Like, even though it's not like official, you are a Jedi. You're a good person, and you need to save the day. Yeah. There's a lot of people relying on you.
Yeah, I felt like there was like a huge amount of pressure on Rey. Like, as soon as he said it, it was like, hey, like, they're gonna lose the war if you don't do anything. And then I would have been like, well, that's a lot. But
yeah, I'd be like, thanks.
Rey like takes it well, cause, like, here is like the Grand Master Luke telling her that he believes in her.
Yeah, and it's like a perfect scene. And then we see the TIE fighter that's in the water from the last movie. That
TIE fighter.
X-Wing. Oh no, X-Wing. Sorry, the X-Wing in the water. Which when we saw that in the last movie, I'm like, and that nothing happened with it. I'm like, that kind of sucks. Like, I wanted to see what they do.
Yeah.
And Luke lifts it out of the water, and you hear his theme and Yoda's theme combined.
Oh,
and you see it lift out, and she looks at Ghost Luke raising it.
Like the scene out of Dagobah.
It is so powerful and so perfect, and they smile at each other. And then the next shot we have is her in Red 5.
Yeah. going to the Sith planet.
Yeah.
And she then it transitions to the Resistance, and they're like kind of freaking out because they're like, oh, okay, we're getting a signal that Luke's X-Wing is flying again. This is kind of weird. And then they're like, oh, it's Rey, and she's leading us the way to the Sith base.
Yeah, because they see the path. They're like, oh, it has to be Rey doing this. So they're like, everyone, let's like get the troops ready. We don't have much time to follow her. So they get like literally like 20 ships.
It's not many.
Yeah. And a little detail that we both noticed is the Millennium Falcon goes the other direction.
Well, like, I mean, even they were talking about it. They're like, at this point, Lando and Chewie are back with the Resistance, and they're told to like go get more help because we're going to need more help. And we see them fly off in the opposite direction, and the rest of
the fleet goes off to try to defend and like kind of buy time against this giant fleet of Star Destroyers with weapon destroying technology. And Rey is on the ground, and she's about to confront the undead Palpatine, and she sees him in this temple, and it's like this arena with all these...
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. It's like almost as if like it was like the Geonosis.
Yeah, it reminded me of that.
I was thinking of that, and like I don't even know what was in the stand. There's living things in the stands,
but you never see their face. They're almost like Dementors, kind of like.
I'm pretty sure it's part of the lore, but they're like, I think they're like old Sith or something like that.
Yeah, that's what, because he's like the Sith are here, and it's like every Sith as like a ghost is like in the room basically, but near the.
It might be like the opposite because like all the light side ghosts are like all light and blue. And those guys are all dark.
Like dark. Yeah, and it was really cool. And so she sees Palpatine, and he's like kind of trying to bait her to like
strike him down.
Strike me down, like do what Luke couldn't.
Take my place. And he was like, and then he said that like all the Sith would live inside of her then and act through her.
And she's like, she sees this, and then
she doesn't want to.
No, she really doesn't. And she looks up to see that her friends...
Yeah, the Resistance has showed up and started fighting everyone.
But they're drastically losing.
Oh, yeah, they're losing by a landslide.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, like, you could save your friends if you go through, because then you'll be the leader. And she is about to do it. And this is when Ben shows up.
Yeah, he shows up, and we get the... Oh, Luke gives Rey Leia's lightsaber.
Yeah, we forgot about that.
Yeah, when she's on the planet with Luke, he's like, you might need this. And I totally forgot that she had that.
I know, yeah. It wasn't really like, it was just like, here. And it's like, you're going to need both lightsabers. And there's so much like alluding in this movie that you just don't think about.
And then, because when he said that, I'm like, okay, she's going to either go double lightsaber, or Luke's old lightsaber, Anakin's old lightsaber is going to break. Yeah. So she's going to use Leia's.
And, anyways, Kylo, well now Ben, he's kind of,
that's his real name.
Yeah, he shows up with the blaster and is like running through the temple to get to Rey because he like senses that she's about to like commit
this huge like problem.
And the Knights of Ren show up.
Yeah, which we didn't get to see in the previous movie, and we only saw flashes of in the first, and it's really cool. And they start kicking the shit out of Kylo Ren.
He was just like, Kylo was like using like holding them back enough, but he was definitely just getting beaten down because there's 6 of them.
Yeah,
and then
they do the Force connection.
Yeah, I think so. Rey senses Kylo, and they do the Force connection, and Rey reaches behind her back to like swing at Palpatine, and pulls her hand back, and the lightsaber is gone. And this is just all the foreshadowing that they can transfer stuff through it. And then all of a sudden the scene cuts to Kylo, and Kylo is now holding the lightsaber.
In the exact same position, and he just paced the Knights of Ren. And
then Rey pulls out Leia's lightsaber.
Yeah, and I really like it. It reminded me a lot of the throne room scene in the previous movie.
Yeah.
Where Kylo Ren's just literally going around just killing people. Like, there's no problem. Like, he's just flipping over them and having them shoot each other. And it's...
that was the craziest thing, though, is like, because Rey was fighting other people in the
oh, yeah, there's like too. His guards.
But you can even... Alright, so like, the throne room scene in episode 8 was amazing, but this is even like more over the top.
And you're like nails are like going in because you're like, holy shit, this needs to happen.
But like you can tell, like just like they're just over like powered. Is like they're excellent swordsmen, you know?
And they're overpowered. And while this is happening, you can hear the battle up above them with all the Star Destroyers and like the TIE Fighters and X-wings. So you can hear it the whole time. So you're aware that you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
While this is happening down here, something big is happening up there. And when Ben and Rey meet up, the Emperor's like, cool, now there's two of you, and he like sucks the life force out of them.
He mentions the fact that there's like a rare connection between the two that doesn't happen really frequently with the Force.
And Ben says it earlier in the movie. He's like, we're tied together.
Yeah, that happens in episode 8.
Yeah, actually. He's like, we're tied together, and even Luke is like, yeah, there's something there, and we don't really know how to describe it. Yeah. And it's why they're like linked, and they're kind of always at a stalemate. That they're like yin and yang.
Yeah, they're like just tied together.
And the Emperor Palpatine is like, well, I'm going to exploit this and suck the power out of you. And then he
like reanimates himself.
Yeah, and he has like these...
So he was like really dead before he had the white eyes, and now all of a sudden he's back to life. He's not really connected to like some life support anymore. He's on his own now.
He's glowing yellow eyes and the red cloak.
And then we'll cut to the space battle, because this is when, we get the hope that Kylo and Rey are gonna like fight, and then we cut to the space battle, and the Lando and Chewie show up with a ton of ships.
That's in the trailer. You just see the shot of all the ships,
and it's a close up, but you don't. And then it pans out, and you see all these ships,
and it's
like a bigger fleet than the actual.
Oh, than the actual Imperial
fleet too. And they're like, man, like this is a weird Resistance fleet. And they're like, this isn't the Resistance. This is just like random people showing up to fight.
Yeah. And I thought it was like the scene from Endgame, but it worked better because the scene from Endgame kind of came out of nowhere, and it was sort of like it didn't build into that. But this, like, you were waiting for them to show up. You're like, it's like in Lord of the Rings, like on the third day, look for me. And then they all show up, and this is the same kind of thing. And Poe is like, kind of like, where the hell are they?
Yeah,
like, we can't buy much more.
Poe is like apologizing to the fleet because he's like, we're gonna lose. Like, there's too many.
Yeah, and then they all show up, and it looks like it's going the right way. And then the Emperor shoots out electricity and turns off all the ships.
Yeah, he like goes like straight in, like shoots lightning in the sky and causes like a thunderstorm essentially.
Yeah,
and disables all these ships. And at this point, Kylo and Rey are. Well, all right, we're gonna back up a little bit. Kylo and Rey get knocked out after the Emperor like sucks out the energy from them, and then Kylo gets up and tries to fight the Emperor. Emperor throws Kylo down this giant pit. Then does the Force lightning, and then Rey wakes up, and Rey is like, kind of like, really struggling to get back up, and she does the whole inner peace thing.
Yes,
and it's a cool shot. They zoom up through the electricity up into the sky,
and it's like going through her, and then you see like the stars, and then you hear everyone's voice.
All the old Jedi masters. So you hear, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan, you hear Yoda, you hear Anakin, you hear a few others actually.
You hear Sir Alec Guinness, the original Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
You hear Ewan McGregor. You hear Hayden Christensen. Like, literally everyone's voice is like, stand up, do it.
Yeah, and it's like all like, and then they're like 1,000 Jedi live through you, which is like the counterpoint to Palpatine trying to be like, we'll have 1,000 Sith live through you. Yeah. So it's like all tying into.
And she gets both lightsabers, and he's like, I am the Sith, and she's like, well, I am the Jedi, and has the cross lightsabers, and essentially she doesn't shoot the lightning back at him. She like absorbs it all, and he just sort of like dematerializes. He like turns into like,
it's just kind of like the,
she like sucks it out of him.
It's like the Mace Windu scene where it gets kind of like he starts like aging really quickly.
Yeah,
and like when that happens again, it's like he ages even more faster, and you can see him like turning into like the skeleton and dying, and it's a lot more gruesome. It's not like the Indiana Jones drinking from the
drinking from the thing or looking at the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
It's like his flesh is coming off.
Oh, it was disturbing. I felt bad for the 8-year-old sitting next to us.
Yeah. And so he gets defeated. The fleet is being very successful with all the reinforcements up in the sky, but Rey dies.
Yep.
It literally sucks all the life force out of her. And well, I didn't realize she was dead, and then her eyes stopped moving. I'm like, oh shit, they killed off Rey.
I know, I was like, no, like, you can't do that. And then Kylo shows up out
he kind of climbs out of the pit, like covered in blood and dirt.
And then he himself brings Rey back.
He like force heals her to life.
And they kiss. And
yeah, they have a kiss, which I thought was really interesting.
I was surprised.
I think that was a J.J. Abrams, like, here's one for the fans. There you go. You get it.
Honestly, like, I'd be happy with that relationship.
Same. It wouldn't bother me. But then he dies.
Yeah, and I'm so upset about that. I really wanted, like, the arc to be where both survive and it's a happy ending.
But he dies in the same way Obi-Wan dies and Yoda die. He turns to nothing.
Yeah, he just, like,
disappears.
You know.
And same as Luke.
And
which
Yoda, too.
Yeah, and I think he shows it's like he's actually one with the Force now.
Yeah.
Like, he has earned that.
It's like the light side, like...
way of dying.
Yeah, and then...
And I think... And then after that, we get this really cool shot. Like, we see Ewoks on Endor. We see Cloud City.
You see all the other, like, Death Stars blowing up all across the galaxy.
And it's a really cool song, or a really cool moment. And then you see the Resistance back on, like, not Yavin 4, but Yavin 4.
Yeah, something similar.
And they're all, like, celebrating. Everyone's happy. And probably the coolest scene is at the end, which I thought the film was going to end on Yavin 4, let's say that. But it goes to Tatooine. And we see Luke's house.
Yeah, Uncle Owen's and Aunt Beru's old house.
And we explore it for a moment. It's all, like, just sanded over because no one's lived there forever.
She, like, rides the, like, you know, piece of metal, like, down a, like...
Like in the first movie.
Yeah, and then you see her, like, wrapping up... Leia's and Luke's
lightsaber together. And she buries them. Which is a really cool moment. It's, like, putting them to rest. And then an old lady who's just like a moisture farmer.
All right. First of all, we got to talk about... She brings out her own lightsaber after that.
Okay. The staff is now a lightsaber.
All right, so, yeah. Rey has a staff lightsaber that is yellow.
Yeah, it's the first time we've seen it in the movie.
She did not ignite the second part, but you can tell that it is a staff. And it's a one-handed staff, though.
Yeah.
It's not a two-handed staff.
And it's so cool, and it's like bright yellow. And which is cool because it's red and green, make yellow in this. And then an old lady behind her who's like a moisture farmer is like, no one's lived here in forever. Like, who the hell are you?
Yeah, like what are you doing here?
Yeah, like seriously, like it's kind of not like who are you? It's like why are you here? Like you're in the middle of the desert.
And then she's like what's your name? And Rey's I'm Rey, and then she's like Rey what? And then
she sees Leia and Luke. In the distance.
She's like Rey Skywalker.
And then it ends.
And then she, you know, it's just like...
Oh, and then she looks at the two sons.
Yeah. I was at that moment, I was like, I don't know if she's going to just say Palpatine. I'm Rey Palpatine. But,
yeah.
Because, like, I thought that would have been, like, kind of, like, neat, because she would have just been like, yeah, I might be related to that guy, but I'm different.
Yeah.
But then it was also kind of neat that she was like, well, like, you know, Luke and Leia were really more of my family
than anyone else,
and I'm going to take their last name. So, like, honestly, I was happy. I was really happy with the way that it ended.
I had a feeling she was going to say that when Palpatine said to Kylo, "I'm going to kill the last Skywalker." When he shoots him into the pit, he's like, "Now ends the last Skywalker." When he says that, I was like,
"Hey, you thought of that ahead of me then."
Yeah, so. I was like. I'm like, there has to always be a Skywalker. It's like, it's one of those things that are like, there has to be. And when she says that, she looks at the twin sons, and we hear the John Williams theme start to swell.
Yeah,
and like tears come to your eye, and then it's cut to black, and then directed by J.J. Abrams. And it was really, really good. It tied together the new trilogy, the original trilogy, and the prequels.
Yeah, if we haven't spoiled it enough for you, you guys should go see it. And in all honesty, like, I mean, like, The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, they got a lot of backlash. And, like, you know, a lot of people were like, there's plot holes, there's, you know, inconsistencies here, and, like, after seeing this movie, like, I still enjoyed those movies, but I have an even greater appreciation for those.
It fills in all the plot holes.
You know, it, like, The Last Jedi was, you look and there's so much setup, actually, like...
Yeah, The Last Jedi really does set up so much for this, because you get the planet where Luke is, you get the X-Wing, you get this idea of Snoke, and this anticlimactic death. You get Kylo being kind of set up and at odds.
Which, I mean, yeah, it's the second movie. Of course it has to set up for the last movie, but like...
Yeah, and then you get this thing at the end where, like, Rey is lifting all these boulders, and it's showing that she has the power, and people are going to rally behind her. And it's just... it is the perfect end to what this needed to be.
Yeah.
And I think JJ killed it, and honestly, all the actors killed it. And the visual effects were off the charts.
I mean, like, even but like, the actors' expressions, like, throughout these, like, not just, like, you know, emotionally, but, like, there were times where you see, like, Kylo or Ben, like, you'd see how strained his face is, and, like, you know, the change from that to when he goes to the light side, like, you see how his face softens.
Yeah.
And, like, I was blown away by that. I was like, you can tell that he's let go.
Yeah, he is, like, he's here to save her, and he's here to help. And just, it was so good. And you can see, especially in Daisy Ridley, she is a really good actor. There's so much emotion coming from her.
You can see the anger coming from her in scenes. You can see, it was...
And, like, when Kylo Ren shows up, she looks at him like, damn, you came to save me. Like, we have a lot of issues, but, like, you came to save me. And that moment at the end, she's like, thanks, Ben. And, like, that's all he wanted. Like, they finally got, like, to be together, but not in the way I think he wanted to. But
he like, accepted it.
Yeah, he did. And I thought it was incredible. Definitely go see it. I don't really have a rating system for my podcast. Yeah, I'm going to give it 10 force pushes out of 10 force pushes.
On a scale from, like, you know, out of 10, you know, I'd probably give it, like, an orange lightsaber.
I'm going to give it an orange lightsaber and 3 womp rats.
Those are pretty cool.
Yeah, an orange lightsaber.
It was enjoyable. It's a fun movie.
It is. You could go blast it with your T-16.
A little bit difficult for an 8-year-old to watch, I would say.
Yeah, I was gonna almost turn to that dad and be like, "How'd your kid make it through this? Like, is he good?"
Like, the kid was quiet too, so,
and he was really, like, quiet. And at the end,
so honestly, shout out to that kid.
Shout out to that kid. And the best was when Palpatine was alive. The kid is like, "No way," because I heard him whispering to his dad. He's like, "Wait, I thought Palpatine died," and the dad's like, "So did I." And it's like,
it was so wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and it's like,
because we're all thinking that too.
And like a little kid just gonna say it. And I was about to turn and be like, "Me too. I also grew up watching these." But I absolutely loved it. It was really good. And I don't know what all the critiques online. Basically, everyone with Star Wars, it's the most toxic fan base in the world.
Oh God, yeah.
And
it's just.
And Finn has the Force.
Oh,
when he's Force sensitive.
That is such, like, I enjoy that so much because it was like the, you know, it was kind of alluded to in episode 7, you know, when he wields the lightsaber, you know, that it's like, hey, you take it because you are Force sensitive. And you know, that's never expanded on in episode 8, and now it's expanded on in episode 9, and it just kind of completed as like, you know, character arc. I mean, you can see the progression of Finn in these 3 movies, and it's honestly, he has a lot of character development. Like he
really
goes from
does.
being like terrified and
like a stormtrooper on the run,
yeah,
to a general.
And he's just like, you see in episode 8, he's like, he's willing to take leadership roles, but he's making a lot of mistakes. And then now in episode 9, it's like he is willing to make, the right sacrifices.
Yeah, and even like the connection between him and Rose, where like in the other one, in the last movie, like they had this bond, and he was like, "No, save yourself, go. I'm gonna stay on the top of the Star Destroyer and take it down." And like he has that moment where he looks at her, he's like, "I know, go." That Han Solo, "I know" moment. I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
and it was so good, and it tied up everything the way it needed to. But you can see that, like, if they continue these Skywalker saga, maybe in 10 years, you could see that Rey and Finn maybe have, like, developed his Force powers, and Poe and everyone can carry on their own saga with new Jedi underneath them.
Yeah. Maybe they'll clone Ben and bring him back.
Honestly,
that's honestly all I want is Ben to come back.
Same. Kylo Ren is one of my favorite characters, because in this also you can see how terrifying he is. Like, he just force pushes people back, and he has like honed his skills, and he is just a killing machine. And I loved it. 100% recommend. Also, we when we got back from the film, we watched The Mandalorian. The most recent 2 episodes, which are episodes 7 and 8, or 6 and 7.
Yes, we're up to episode 7, so there's going to be one more episode. We this last one just ended on a cliffhanger. So.
And we're not going to spoil The Mandalorian just yet until maybe next week. I'll patch you in. We'll do one, yeah. Or you actually might be here because of the holidays.
Yeah, I'm on break from classes. So.
Exactly. What do you think of The Mandalorian in general?
I think, like, you can tell, like, it's a very high budget film.
Oh, it's ridiculously high budget.
And a lot of people know it's a larger budget than Game of Thrones, which is huge. It beats it by like 20% too. Like, it's not by a small margin. There are certain scenes that I know where I look at it and, like, you look at like the Star Wars movies and the fighting is so fluid, and you watch The Mandalorian and it's not fluid at all. And that is the one thing that I'm kind of like, this is a weird take on.
The Mandalorian is just like, it's like grittier. There's something to it. It's
like, you talked about it. You said it was like everything is like broken. Nothing is like,
everything sucks in this universe. Like, everything on the Mandalorian ship is rusty and shitty, and everything is like a smeared. It looks like a gas station bathroom. This entire universe sucks, and like even like. The episode where they're on the planet with the AT-ST.
Yeah.
That, like, nice planet. Even the AT-ST sucks. It's, like, rusted and everything. His armor is always, like, kind of beat up.
Yeah.
And, I like, the aesthetic for it is perfect.
And it's just kind of, like, it's more of, like, I feel like, since she's not, like, a force wielder, like, you look at it, she's just, like, doing the brute force way of staying alive in all these different situations, and it's fun to watch though. Like, there are scenes where they, it's still brute force, but it transitions between being both like smooth, whereas his fighting style is relentless and tactical, and then it'll show him actually getting hit and faltering, and that's like, it's amazing to watch because all of a sudden you see him change tactics and it's a little bit more desperate.
There's a scene, the one that I can tell that with is there's an episode, it's on a prison ship, and you can see how he tries to take down each of the people differently and how he takes down the droids, where he's using a certain tactic, but there's like a brute force character.
Yeah.
And he's basically trying to just outsmart that character.
Yeah, that's. I mean, like, I feel like it'd be weird to compare him to Batman, but like,
there is a Batman name.
It's just like, because he is very ominous and like, dark and brooding. But like, it's just like every single time, it's like he's generally like outnumbered or outgunned or anything, and he's just like using his wits just to stay alive.
And he is always on the back foot. Like he is, the odds are never in his favor.
No.
And there is a scene in the prison episode in the hallway with a flickering light, and it is the coolest effect. And I'm not sure if that's just in editing or if that's actually they had what's his name who plays the Mandalorian? It's Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
If they had him, they're like, okay, Pedro, 1, 2, 3, stand here. Now run, stand here. But like the light's flickering on and off, and you see the light, and it's on, and then it's off, and then he's gone, and then he's somewhere else. He's getting closer and closer and closer.
It's like you're playing Slenderman.
Yeah, it is like the Slender Man effect. And they turn around the camera, and he's right there, and he's kind of like, boo. Like, sort of thing.
Well, he doesn't say boo.
But that is what it is.
But the guy that he's like going after is
Bill
like
Burr.
fucking knows he's right there too.
And Bill Burr knows he's right there. And I genuinely like Bill Burr, like on his podcast and everything else. In this episode, he is so unlikable. He's just such an asshole. And I'm just like...
He plays the character well.
He does. And I'm like, I just want Mando to kill him so bad. Just like, that's the first thing I said to Jacob while we were watching this. And you'd already seen it.
I had seen the episode before, and Russell over here is like, wait, what's going on with it? I'm like, just watch the episode. Like, I don't want to spoil everything.
Yeah. It was fantastic. And then the most recent one we saw has Gus from Breaking Bad, and I believe his name is Giancarlo Esposito or Espinoza. I will look that up for sure right now, just because I always like getting names right. So let's look.
As for the Mandalorian series, if you haven't seen it, a lot of people kind of complain that it's a very, like, you know, each episode, like, you don't actually have to watch it fully chronologically.
Giancarlo Esposito.
Because, like, you know, each episode is a different scene, a different problem kind of thing.
Yeah, they're very, like, they're like vignettes. They're like all these individual kind of things.
And, you know, if you stick with it and you get to the 7th episode, it completely changes the formula of the show.
Yeah.
And that took me for a surprise watching that episode.
It did, and this episode 7 had a jump scare. And it got me. The pterodactyl thing.
Oh, yeah.
That, I audibly said, oh shit, when that came out. But it was so good because even the filming style in that one was different. Like, it was so much more tense. Like, the entire episode, you're just like, just tense.
Actually, if you look through a lot of episodes, they have a lot of different filming methods.
Bryce Dallas Howard, who's Ron Howard's daughter, who, if you've seen Jurassic World.
Okay.
Not Chris Pratt, the girl.
Yeah.
She directed the episode where it's them defending the village.
Oh, okay.
So it's different directors doing all the episodes.
That
or at least
would
a few.
explain why you're seeing different kinds of camera shots.
And I'm not sure about the cinematographer. I could look it up, but like even like the shooting style and like everything looks so different.
Yeah.
Like some of them look more Star Wars-y, and some of them look more like more just like an action movie, and then other scenes look more just like artsy, if that's the right term.
It switches in between a few styles, and like
I will use a film word here from film school. The mise en scène of the episodes
are
very different. Mise en scène is French for everything within the frame.
Ah, well,
or like the art in the frame.
My 4 years of French are not helping me right now.
Yeah. So my film term, because I'm an asshole, the mise en scène is very different in all of them. But no, I love The Mandalorian. I think.
I'm so excited for the next episode to come out.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. I asked you in the car on the way back from the film, but we're going to do it now before we wrap up the episode. Can you please, as of right now, this isn't a for sure list, rank Star Wars movies in order, only the 1 through 9. So we're not doing Solo and we're not doing Rogue One. From favorite to least favorite.
Man, we were talking about this. This is so hard because of like nostalgia. So like you always want to say like 4, 5, and 6, or like at the top 3. I always say like episode 5 is my favorite go-to. I love A New Hope, and I love Return of the Jedi. I gotta say like between all 9 movies, the prequels are again okay. I guess I kind of stick with that crowd where they're fun to watch, they're great action movies, but like they're
like a bit hokey.
Yeah. And I remember when episode 7 came out, I'm like, like next to the original trilogy, this is like my favorite Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so I really gotta say, like, there's 4, 5, and 6 are all up there, and then I gotta say episode 9 is like, right there. And
I like 9 more than 8.
I like 9 more than 7.
I actually think I like 9 more than 7. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the movie, and then I'll definitely do like 9, 7, 8, and then definitely 3. Revenge of the Sith was just such a wonderful, fun movie. And then probably 1 and then 2. I think 2 was probably my least favorite, but I still enjoyed the movie.
Okay. Yeah, none of these are bad. It's just which one is my least favorite.
Yeah. I if someone is going to be like, hey, you want to watch episode 2, I'm going to be like, fuck yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the way I like to describe Star Wars movies is like a box, like literally like a box of chocolates. Like they all have different flavors. They're all delicious chocolates, but you're going to like one more than another one.
I can't say I'm that kind of Star Wars fan that's just like hates one.
Yeah.
I play a lot of the games.
I grew up with it.
I've read some forum stuff, like I love hearing the lore and anything Star Wars,
Yeah.
So,
and yeah,
even if it's not really considered canon, like it's just a fun universe.
It is. It's really fun. It's different, and I mean, I know the fan base is exceptionally toxic. All this other stuff, I know, I get it, but I also do love these films, and I try to not be a toxic piece of shit. But I think my ranking for favorite to least favorite Star Wars movies is going to be Episode 4, A New Hope. It's probably my favorite.
We're not friends anymore.
I'm sorry. It's Episode 4 starts off really slow. We're going to do Empire Strikes Back is number 1 for me. Okay. Empire Strikes Back, Rise of Skywalker, A New Hope, Force Awakens, Last Jedi,
Return
of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
That's my order. That may change if you ask me tomorrow.
Honestly, like, comparing our list, like, I am okay with that too. I'm just like, like...
Yeah,
they're so close. Like,
they are,
so
and that's why it took me a second to, like, try to think. I'm like, because there's parts... We could do an entire series of podcasts only on Star Wars. We should do another one when we finish The Mandalorian. Because I think out of all my friends, probably you and Kyle have played the most Star Wars games.
Oh, so, I could go on and on about the lore from some of the games.
Old Republic 1 and 2. I have Knights of the Old Republic 1 on my phone.
Yeah, you showed me that before, yeah.
So if I ever need a fix... If I ever need a fix on Knights of the Old Republic.
Alright, so like if we talk about like like the Luke twist.
Yeah.
Luke being Darth Vader's son. Rey being Palpatine's
granddaughter.
And then there's a twist in the Knights of the Old Republic where your character is not just some random soldier, but you are actually the main Sith Lord at that time.
Yeah, you are the bad guy.
Those are massive twists.
Yes.
And, like, that's also kind of part of the Star Wars universe, and it's so fun.
Yeah, and that's, like, what we were waiting for with the Rey thing. And in 8, I was like... Because in Episode 5, as we know, we get the I am your father twist.
Yeah.
And in 8, we didn't get a twist. And it's like...
We got the twist of, like, oh, she's nobody. And then I was thinking more or less, like, they're trying to play it off as, like, it could be anyone.
Yeah.
And, you remember when Force Awakens came out, like...
Everyone was speculating. Yeah,
like Obi-Wan's daughter, someone else's daughter, and like this twist of her being Palpatine's granddaughter. Yeah. No one was expecting that.
There were bets in Las Vegas on it, on people betting, and there's one dude in Vegas who's like, it's Palpatine's granddaughter. One guy, and he just won $1 billion. He's just sitting with his like golden tigers. He's like, I knew it. It's like one of those things, and it. Go see it. Do yourself a favor. It's in theaters. watch it on the big screen because it's Star Wars. It's epic. It's the last film John Williams is doing in the Star Wars saga.
Honestly, it's so much fun to see in theaters.
It is really so much fun. The fights are good, and
it's kind of a movie that you like talk about in like 20 years and be like, yeah, I saw it in theater.
Yeah, and it is one of those films. If you liked The Force Awakens and if you liked The Last Jedi, there's pieces that you'll like from both of those films in this.
Even if you weren't like super impressed with The Last Jedi, like go see it. It really makes you appreciate it.
And even if you love The Last Jedi but didn't like The Force Awakens, there's stuff in here for you.
Yeah.
There's stuff for both parties in this film, which I thought was impressive that they tied in pieces from both and the good stuff from both films. Because each film, yes, has their flaws. And this film isn't perfect, but go see it.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, I'm giving it 3 Womp Rats and a T16 out of a yellow lightsaber. That's my rating scale.
Cool. Cool, I shoot Womp Rats with my T16 back home.
You psychopath. Is there anything else you have for the lovely people before we go? Do you have anything for them to watch or read or listen to or do before the next episode besides these things that we talked about?
Yeah, well, other than catch up on The Mandalorian if you guys haven't done that.
Yeah, if you guys aren't leeching off of Jake's Disney Plus account.
Yeah, alright. Hopefully my brother doesn't watch this because we share accounts, but I might have given out to 2 or 3 friends as well.
Shout out. But, so... do you have anything else for people to read or watch?
No, I mean, I think we'll probably continue this.
Yeah,
week, then.
The only thing I would say, I have 2 things. Play on Star Wars. Play the Jedi Fallen Order if you haven't.
Oh, I do have one thing. You haven't done this yet because you haven't played through the campaign, but the campaign of Battlefront 2, while it was not well received as other Star Wars campaigns, does tie into these movies.
Oh. Okay.
And we have not talked about this yet. So, we'll talk about this probably next week.
Yeah, when I finish it. So, also, yeah, Battlefront 2 is now $25. They've taken out all of the microtransactions and gambling stuff in it, so everything is kind of free.
We're not sponsored.
We're not sponsored. But, no, yeah, this isn't a sponsored thing, but seriously, buy it. It's like $25. And I know, if you go... And it's like gray market, but G2A. It's where people resell their codes.
Oh, okay.
You can just buy it and resell it on G2A, and it's like gray market, so it's not illegal, but it's like scalping.
Yeah.
You can find it for as low as $12. And there's other sites like G2A, and there's other forums you can get stuff on. So I mean, if you have the opportunity to play it. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I bought mine off of EA. I just did first party because I like doing that just to be safer. So you have, verification that you purchased something.
Or buy the original Battlefront 2 from 2005 or something
yes.
like that. That is also a wonderful game.
And you can probably find that now for $10.
Oh,
$5.
Cheaper. I think I bought it on Steam for $2.50 when it went on sale. So
okay, so you can get it mad cheap.
And since these movies are coming out, the modding community is gaining a huge amount of support. So, you can play all the new maps if you're good at,
modding.
Adjusting your files. So it's
get
a
on
fun
it.
game.
Yeah, get on. This is a Star Wars focused episode. I hope you guys liked it. Jake will be back for our next Star Wars talk. And do you have anything else?
No.
Well, thank you so much for listening. This is Nothing and Everything. It's a podcast that you just listened to. Bye. Uh-oh. Bye.